My name is Jeremy, and I'm an alcoholic. And I'm grateful to be here and grateful to be sober. I'll tell you now, in my drinking career, I used to pass out a lot, blackout, whatever you want to call it. And in sobriety, I hadn't got close to that, but this is the closest moment I've had yet. I'm telling you, the fear is all over me right now, but I can walk through that fear today. Fear is used to what drove me to drinking, and we're just gonna walk through it today. So I'm gonna get right into it. I got a sponsor. He's got a sponsor. I got a home group. This is my home group. I love this group. I recently stepped up to be the GSR to this group. That's a big part of my recovery is service work and just being involved and active in AA. My sobriety date is December the 11th of 2018. I just recently picked up a year. And, sobriety's been great so far, but we'll just start off. So I'm from Richmond County. I grew up in Richmond County. I know we got some people from Rockingham in here tonight. But anyways, I grew up in Richmond County. Growing up, I had everything I needed. I didn't always have what I wanted. My parents, my mom, she was sick growing up. She suffers from severe depression, and in my early childhood, she was going to these mental institutions for rehabilitation, and my dad, he's not an alcoholic, but during that time in his life, he was just partying and being a young adult, and he just had to live and learn. So for the early years of my childhood, I grew up in my grandmother's home. She was a church-going lady. She loved going to church. She was just the sweetest lady that I've ever had in my life. She loved me dearly. And growing up as a child, things were good. I loved being a kid. I was born in the 90s. We made mud pies and played in the woods, and we had a good time outside. And today, it's different for these kids. They're on their electronics and games and all this stuff. They don't know what playing in the woods is about. But things were good growing up as a kid, and just moving forward. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. But so as a kid, growing up, things were good. And in my household, I was always in church on Sundays. I loved going to church. I was involved in Sunday school, and I loved playing with the kids after church and just being involved in that atmosphere. And I always knew something was wrong, though. As a little kid, I always knew that something was off. I felt different. I didn't feel a part of. I felt separated from other kids. I felt like they had a better family than I had. I always compared myself to other people and other families. And, that stuck with me growing up. And just always thinking of downgrading myself as a kid. I'm talking 5-6 years old. And, I remember being a kid, and I would always be in trouble. I was a hellion as a kid. Every other day I was getting a whooping, or my grandma was getting on to me. I was always into stuff, and that stuck with me through growing up. And things were good in my childhood, so I'm going to move out of childhood. I don't really remember a lot from that. So around the age of 10 years old, my dad decided he was going to get his stuff together, and I can remember him coming by and telling me if I was ready to move in with him, and it was a big change, and I didn't know what to expect. We really hadn't spent a whole lot of time together with me in my earlier childhood, and so I ended up moving in with my dad, and things were great. My dad took me fishing. My dad worked hard. He taught me how to work. He taught me that I had to work hard in life to get anywhere, and he always tried to give me great advice. I never listened to it, but I swear if I'd have listened to the things my dad told me, I'd probably still be right here, but I'd probably have a lot more. Things were great. We went fishing. I played sports growing up. I played every sport there was. I played baseball, football, basketball, you name it. And I loved playing sports. I was very active in sports, and that was a big part of my childhood. And around that time, about a year later after I had moved in with my dad, my mom decided that she thought she was good enough to come home. And so I hadn't seen my parents together in some time, and my mom came home, and we were all living in the same household, and things weren't too great in my household. My mom and dad, they argued a lot. My dad worked very hard to provide, to pay the bills, and to put food on the table, and I'll always remember that about my dad. And he struggled a lot just to pay the bills and put food on the table. And during that time, my dad and mom suffered from a gambling addiction. Neither one of them are alcoholics, but they had their own problems. And any sort of addiction will tear a household apart, and especially a gambling addiction. My mom would steal money out of my dad's wallet, or either they would get together and they would blow all the money, and sometimes there wouldn't be enough money for groceries or whatever. Just always chaos, always my mom and dad at each other's throat. And it was like that for a while. Some days it wasn't, some days it was great. But it's just like my house was always in complete chaos. And it's like I always wanted to escape. I just wanted to be a part of another family. I'm not an only child. I do have a brother. He doesn't have the same dad as me, but we didn't live together growing up. So I was always alone. I didn't have many friends as a child. I was always close by my parents' side. I was either working with my dad. My dad did side work when he'd get done with his full-time job, and I'd help him, and we'd work all day, and then we'd be in every gambling location in Richmond County. They used to have the machines. They're illegal now. We used to be in these gambling houses, and I'd be in there at 10, 11 years old. I'm playing gambling machines, stealing my mom's cigarettes, just, thinking I'm living the life. And during my parents' addiction, my dad and mom, they started to steal, and I picked up that habit at a very young age. And, my dad, he would go to work some mornings, and like I said, I was always getting in trouble. And I'd get in trouble in school a lot. I'd get suspended every week. I was always into something. And my dad, he laid down the law. My dad used to whoop me if I did anything. He just was that type of parent. And it never seemed to do anything for me. I never learned from it. But my mom, she didn't like that. She's more the sensitive type. Don't put your hands on my son. And she didn't like that. So when I'd get suspended from school, I'd tell my mom, I'd say, hey, look, I got suspended. Don't tell Dad. And she'd be like, okay, son, well, you know the drill. You're going to have to get up and get ready for school, and we'll drop you off, and I'll take your dad to work, and I'll be back to get you when I drop him off. And I did that several times throughout my childhood. My mom she just saved me from ass whoopings all the time, and excuse my French, but I'd do that, and like I said, I picked up that stealing habit at a very young age, and I can remember I used to steal to supply my mom's habit, her gambling addiction, because I knew she would be ill, or she wouldn't be happy unless we were gambling or she was doing her thing. That was kind of like her escape from reality, was the gambling addiction. So I used to, as a young kid, steal to provide for her gambling addiction, and things just progressively got worse. And eventually my mom and dad, my mom ended up, she started to get sick again, and I don't think my dad could take it anymore. He's working really hard. Tension's very strong in the house. He's barely getting by. And back then I used to resent him a lot, and today I forgive him. And today that I know that if I was in his position, I would have probably done the same thing. So my mom started to get sick, and I don't think he could deal with it anymore. He couldn't take it, and I had a substitute teacher at school, and I met her before my dad did, and she ended up coming to our church. And long story short, my dad ended up getting together with this lady, and I hated her. I mean, I absolutely hated her. My dad left my mom, and my whole house was just torn apart. And I had this new, she was trying to be a stepmother to me, trying to give me guidance, and I just hated her, resented her, didn't want to be around her, didn't want to be around my dad at this point in time. And we're moving forward a little bit in age. This is around when I was 14 when this happened. And I had met these two fellas at church, and they became my best friends I've ever had in life. We're no longer friends due to the disease of addiction, but at that point in time in my life, these were the guys that I clung to. We got in trouble together. We laughed together. We grew up as teens together, and this is where I got exposed in my teen years to just drugs and alcohol. But before I get into this, I will tell you my first drinking experience. It was my mom and dad's anniversary, and they drove like a 1989 Bonneville. It was July. It was like 98 degrees outside, and they had a bottle of Boone's Farm in the back of the trunk, and I was about 12 years old, and my dad pulled it out, and I said, let me taste that. He said, son, you want to taste this? I don't know if you're sure if you want to taste this. And I said, yeah, I really do want to taste it. And he handed me the bottle, and I turned it up. And as soon as I turned it up, I spit it right back out. I didn't want anything to do with liquor or alcohol, wine, whatever you want to call it. I thought it was absolutely horrible. And I didn't drink for a number of years after that. So drugs are a part of my story. Out of the respect of AA, I will try to steer clear from them. But if you want to hear my truthful story, my honest story, I will have to talk about some of them. So I met these guys, and they became my best friends. And I started going over to their house on the weekend. And I loved it. That family I was always looking for, they had it. They had what I wanted. I felt a part of. I felt bigger than myself, and they just opened me up. I felt like I was becoming the Jeremy that I always wanted to be. And I started to stay over there more and more and more. And at this time, my dad, he was going through, this woman was just dragging him through the dirt, and he was chasing her, and I was resentful at him. And I ended up leaving home about the age of 15. I packed up my stuff. I told my dad, I said, I'm never coming back. I said, I'm gone. And I moved in with these two guys, and their mom took me in just as their own. And for a great time, things were well. Around the age at this time when I was 15, I started smoking pot. And I can remember the first time I smoked pot. I was supposed to go meet my girlfriend right before I'd done it. And I remember inhaling it and just puffing on what I was smoking. And I remember going to the bedroom and laying on the bed, and my head just spinning and spinning. And my friend's dad, he was in the kitchen washing dishes, and I was laying in the bed, and I was texting him. I was like, I can't come out there right now. And I was like, please bring me something to drink. My mouth is dry. And please bring me something to eat. I'm so hungry. And long story short, I never made it to see my girlfriend that night. I think I ended up passing out right there. That was my first experience with marijuana. I blacked out. But every day after that, I told myself I want to do this again. When I got a hold of marijuana, it took me outside of myself. The fear was gone. I could talk to women. I could do everything the fear was just gone. I was on top of the world, and my friends were doing it, and it brought me to a point where I was just popular. I was hanging out with the cool kids at school, and we'll just rewind this back a little bit. During my school time, I got in trouble a lot because I was bullied as a kid. I was always the skinny guy. I was always the guy with not the nice clothes and not the nice shoes. And, kids can be cruel, and I resented the world for that. I resented school. I resented the world around me. And I just pretty much hated everybody at a young age. And the bullying continued up until middle school. And it's when I met these two guys that the bullying stopped. They kind of toughened me up, and I tied my shoelaces up, and I said, if anybody messes with me, they're just gonna have to whoop my ass. And that's how I went about my life for the next 10 years. And I got my ass whooped a couple times too, I'll tell you that. Being bullied, it just made me resent the world. And but like I said, when I got a hold of the marijuana, I was hanging out with the cool kids at school, or at least I thought so. The girls were coming around, and that's like, if I didn't have it, I couldn't do anything. Every day from the day I first smoked it, that was what I wanted to do. And it didn't start out like that. in the beginning, it was like, okay, like, if I get it today, like, I get it. If I don't, I don't. But moving forward, like, I was like 16 then, and by the time I'm 17, you know, I'm already went through marijuana, the hard stuff, the opiates. This is at 17, and also at 17, I met a few other guys, and I ended up getting involved in this group, and I had to do some things, and I ended up robbing a store, and I remember this is the first time I got in some serious trouble, and you know, it was the next day. I left town because I was scared I was going to get locked up, and I went to Montgomery County, and my brother called me, and my brother's like, he's 5 years older than me, and he's sitting at the house, and he's puffing on something, and he looks out the window, and he said there was like 20 cop cars pulling up, and he called me, and he said, "Bo, I don't know what you have done, but the whole Richmond County Sheriff's Department is outside right now, and they are not playing games." And when he told me that, I just hung up the phone, and I was trying to figure out where I was going to go. And the walls were caving in, and I remember my friend's uncle. Uncle Paul. He came in the house. He was a real scary guy, a tattoo around his face. He would just beat me up or just throw me. So I was bucking up at him. I said, "I'm not going to no detective's office. I'm telling you that right now." And he pushed me down on the couch. I said, all right, I'm going. And I remember walking out the door before him, and when I hit that bottom step, I took off like a rabbit. I was going through the woods. It was February, and I had basketball shorts on. I had slides on, and I hit them woods so hard, man. I was running through the woods, and I had like $600 in my sock. And I went knocking on somebody's door. I said, "Hey, man, I'll give you $500 if you take me to Rockingham right now." And this guy's like, "You go to Laws looking for somebody?" I said, "No, I don't know that, brother." And long story short, I got to the end of this guy's driveway, and he had called in on me and told him which road I was on. And the cops came up, and they said, "Man, you're who we're looking for? You're a kid." And I was like, "Yeah, it's me." So this was my first experience. No, this is my second experience going to jail. The first time I had gotten in a fight at school and didn't really do no time, but I was really nervous this time. But here's what I learned. I'm able to adapt to anything in my addiction. Jails never stopped me. When I got to jail, I was nervous at first going in there at 17 years old, but facing the charge. I didn't even know what a felony was when I robbed that store. You know, I thought you got in trouble and you went and you did your time, and that was it. You didn't have no record. I didn't know nothing about that. And so I got to jail, and I started asking these jailhouse lawyers that got them in there. They were like, "Yeah, man, you're 17. It's your first offense. You're probably getting out of here with probation." And what had happened was the store wasn't the only place that I had robbed at the time, so they had ended up pinning all these other robberies on me, and I thought I was going to prison for sure, but like the jailhouse lawyer said, I got out with like 60 months of supervised probation. It's like 5 years, and I only ended up doing a month in jail. And I remember the day that I got out, I was in Montgomery County, and the same guys that I got locked up with came and got me. And that same exact day, I was right back getting high, right back doing the things I was doing. And I remember going to their house, and this was it. Like, I was no longer welcome there. Their parents had said that I was the problem. I was the root of their troubles, and their dad really didn't like me, to be honest. And so I got to their house, and they told me I had to leave, and the only place I had to resort to was my grandmother's house. And like I said, my brother was probably in his early 20s somewhere, and my first cousin, he was in his early 20s, and I hadn't seen them in years, like really hung out with them. I had been with these other guys, and when I got to my grandmother's, I just entered another world. My brother uses like I use. My whole family, my mother's side of the family, is completely eat up with this disease. And so when I moved in there, I was 17, and I had everything I needed. I didn't have to steal no more. My brother's smoking weed. They got it. They're doing all this stuff, and it was just a huge party. And by this time, I think I was in like the 11th grade. All all those sports that I had played, all the stuff that I had worked hard at was out the window. I quit absolutely everything. My main focus was partying every day I could, drinking every day I could, and getting high every day I could at 17. And let's see. I remember this night, so this is like my first, I remember I said I never touched liquor for a while after that Boone's Farm experience, but I do remember this. Me and one of my buddies, these girls were having a party from our school, and we were invited to it, and I was real excited to go, but I'm driven by 1,000 forms of fear, and so the party started at 10 o'clock that night, and it's about 5 o'clock in the day. We're getting lit up, and he's got a bottle of, I think it was El Toro tequila, with the one with the little sombrero on there. And I had never really drunk liquor really hard at this point in time, and I remember it was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. About 7 o'clock that night, me and him's already through this fifth, and I'm stumbling. I can hardly make it. And we get to this party, and I'm just down in shots. And I remember I thought I was going to the party. I was like, I know I'm leaving with that girl that I like. She's going home with me tonight, I'm telling you. And this is how my nights, I always thought like that for a while. This is how my nights ended up. I think I ended up in the bushes. I also had a girlfriend when I thought I was going home with that other girl. I think I ended up in the bushes throwing up, calling my girlfriend, crying on the phone. And I think I wound up in my friend's bathroom to his mom knocking on the door the next morning at like 6 a.m. She couldn't get the door open because I'm laying on the floor. And that's how my drinking career started out. And so just moving forward, I met that same girlfriend that I'm talking about. We started out partying together, smoking marijuana together, and we were really young. And her grandmother really didn't like me. I was she grew up in a Christian household, and I wasn't really painting a picture for her grandma at that time. Her grandma knew that I was getting in trouble. I was getting all these tattoos at a young age, and her grandma just didn't want her granddaughter to have anything to do with me. But she couldn't stop us, so we would always go behind her grandma's back and see each other, or she would take her grandma's car, and we'd be off doing stuff. And we fell in love at 17 years old, to be honest with you, and some things happened, and we both got in trouble, and she had to end up moving to Greensboro. And we're 17, we're in love, or what we thought was love, and she said, I can't live without you, baby. I'm going with you. And so her parents were pretty cool. Her parents let me move up there with her, and I started living in their household, and things got better when I moved up there. I stopped using for the majority. I stopped using. I got my first job as an adult. I was stacking lumber at a lumber yard for $7.25, making $2.24 a week, and I remember that because that was a hard job. But and I remember her parents telling me, she said, if you're gonna live in this house, you got to work and you got to go to school. And I was fine with the working part, but I was never really a fan of school. And so my girl, she was going to college to be a nurse, and I signed up to get my GED. And I'd go to school, she'd go to class, I'd sit in the car and get high, and we'd go into the house. And one morning her mom went down to the school and was checking in on things, and I wasn't there. She realized that I hadn't been going to school, so I got chewed out for that, but I just told her plainly, I said, I just ain't going to do it. I ain't going to school. I work, but I can't go to school. And so I quit that, and mine and my girlfriend's relationship was very toxic. Even when we didn't use, the disease was just all over us. It was very toxic. We always argued. The good addict and alcoholic that I am, we have insecurities, we have jealousy, even when the drugs and alcohol were not there, and we just argued over everything. But there were good days and there were bad days, and we just couldn't see each other being apart. And through this all, my girlfriend, she ended up getting pregnant, and she had been talking about getting married, and I really didn't want to get married, but I was telling her, like, yeah, we can get married. And so we went and got a marriage license, and it sat in a drawer for about 2 months, and this was before she had got pregnant. And she got pregnant, and that sealed the deal. She was ready to get married after that, and I really didn't have no options. So I said, yeah, we can go on down to the courthouse and we'll get married. So that's what we done. We got married, and I was really excited to have a baby. I really thought I was going to get my act together. I had ended up buying a 3-bedroom single wide and completely remodeling it and putting it on a piece of land. And I was looking forward to moving in that home and trying to be a father figure and trying to be a husband and just trying to make this relationship better. And I'm going to tell you right now, this disease completely ruined that relationship. It took my daughter from me. It completely, within 8 months, my daughter was born July 15th of 2013. And it was 8 months after that me and my wife separated. We had started, her parents had split up, and she's a mama's girl. And her mama was her biggest downfall. And she would always run to her mama. And things just got bad. And so we ended up splitting up. I remember the day we split up. I remember packing a trash bag full of clothes and leaving her and my baby girl right there in that trailer. And I said, I love you, but I got to go. I can't be with you anymore. And I really didn't have nowhere to go other than to my boss man's house. And at this time, I had a pretty good job, making decent money. I was working for HVAC company in Greensboro. We would go out of state doing commercial, industrial commercial. I'm not sure. I didn't get really much experience with it. The job didn't last too long. But I ended up going to my boss man's house, and he was a Christian man, and his wife really liked me, and they really liked our family. And I told him what had happened, and the reason I left my wife is because she had an affair on me, and I'm not knocking her, like I'd done the same thing to her. So that's just the relationship we had. But I ended up telling my boss man what had happened, and he said, okay, we'll put you in the spare bedroom. You can work for a couple weeks, and you can get your own place up here. He said, you make good enough money, you can do that. And I was cool with that. And but here's what happened. Leaving my wife and my kid, I didn't have any responsibilities. And I got back in touch with those guys that I had been running with in the past, and I called them up, and they said they were in Virginia. They had this farm out in Virginia they'd go on vacation to, and they said they were out there for the weekend, and I said I was going to come up, and I drove a Honda. I'd bought my first car with some tax money I got, and I bought this car. I didn't have a license. I didn't have no tags and insurance, and here I am. I'm off to Virginia. That's how it was for many years. I went, how many years? I think I went 10 years because I had a seatbelt ticket not paid without a license, and I think it was like $300. I went 10 years without a license for that. So I drove up to Virginia, and it hadn't been but a week since me and my girlfriend, my wife, had split up. And I get up there, and sure enough, there's a girl. There's a girl at this place, and we meet, and we're drinking. I'm getting her beers, and I'm trying to get in there. I like her. She's pretty, and she seems to be liking me. And her dad's there. He's this big Lumbee Indian guy. He said, "You got to go in the house." And I remember them talking about they were going to the beach the next weekend. I said, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna make that trip." And I was still on this probation that I had been on for maybe 3 years now without any problems, no violations, anything like that. And I remember that week I went to Virginia. I'd done some work. I came home. I had a lot of money, and I went and got the party goods that I needed. I went and got to the mall and got some clothes, and I had a probation appointment that day. And I said, I'm gonna go by there and see my PO. But so I went by there, and I got there, and he wasn't there. I said, well, I got to go. I'm going to the beach. So I went down to the beach, and we were partying up, having a good time, and things were going good. And I get a call probably 2 days into the trip. My boss man called me. He said, hey, everything you own is in trash bags out by the road. He said, I know you lied to me. He said, your PO came by here. He said, he's looking for you. He knows you're out of the state. I've talked to your mom. I know you're not there. You're probably going to be in trouble when you get back. I never even went back. I left everything I owned, everything that was in those trash bags. They're probably still in the ditch today. But I tell you this. So I went on the run from that probation for about 9 months. during this time, I just drank harder and harder. I kept using drugs harder and harder. And these consequences, like the jails, the probation, the running, it never bothered me. I was always fine with that stuff. I've been through a lot of experiences in my drinking career that, would have probably been like, all right, it's time to get sober. I didn't think that way. I never thought drugs and alcohol was the reason I was doing all these things and getting into all this trouble. I always thought it was my hand in life. Everybody owed me something, and the world is just a screwed up place, and that's how I thought for a number of years. And so I was on the run for about 9 months, and during this 9 months, I was doing hard drugs, stuff that keeps you up for a long time. I was drinking a lot, and I'm gonna tell you this: I used a lot more than I drank, but I always keep that in the forefront of my mind. Even every time that I did drink, I had to have 5 double shots back to back just to get a buzz. I hated beer, absolutely hated it. It didn't do anything for me. There's no way I can wait to drink 16 to feel a little buzz. Like I got to have that instant relief. And so I remember this night I was at this club called Wolf Pit, and I had been drinking and I had been doing some other stuff, and I remember, it's every alcoholic or person that's drunk at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning, they always want to go to Waffle House. And so we go to the Waffle House, and we're in there having a good time, and we're in there laughing, probably raising Cain. And I remember I was riding with my buddy, the same 2 guys that I called my best friend for a number of years. And I was riding with my buddy, and I ended up getting left with another buddy. So they're brothers, and I was riding with one of them, and he don't really mess around like that. He's got a family. He don't really do stuff to get in trouble. He just drinks and smokes a little grass. And the other one, on the other hand, he's that type that's going to do some crazy stuff. So my other buddy, he ended up leaving me, and I had to ride with the crazy one. And the crazy one ended up taking me home to my mom's, and my mom lives in Village Green in Rockingham, little apartment community. And so I'm walking up the hill, and he decides that he's going to steal something off somebody's car. And what had happened was somebody called the law on him, and it had been about 5 minutes. I was standing in the kitchen with my mom, and I heard a knock on the door, and I thought for sure it was him. And I opened the door up, and the mag lights and the cops were there, and I was like, oh man, it's over. They got me. And they started asking my name, and sure enough, long story short, they put me in handcuffs, and they weren't there for me. They were there to figure out what was going on with the car, but they found out that I had those outstanding warrants in Randolph County for the probation violation. So this is the first time I went to prison. I always got lucky. The court system would come up with these things. They had a quick dip, so I got my suspended sentence was like 18 months. I ended up going to prison for 3 months and coming back out on that same probation. Worst choice I could have ever made. I remember when I was in prison, it was lonely. My family don't have a lot of money, so they didn't really send me a lot of money. You get hungry in there, you steal in there, and bad things happen in there. And the 3 months I was there, it was absolutely miserable. And I said, I'll never come back to this place. I remember the day I got out. I'd been talking to my mom. I'd been telling her things were going to be different. My daughter was at the house, and my brother picked me up. And before I even got home, I got high again. It's just my second nature. Like, I'm going to get high no matter what. I might tell you I'm not, but I'm going to get high. It's just a little grass. It ain't going to be nothing major. And I walked in, and my mom, she was just so disappointed. And my mom, she loved me to death. She really didn't get on me too much. She just said, "Son, I just don't want it to be like it was before." And I said, "Mom, it ain't going to be that way." And like I said, I said I was never going back to prison. So I was living in Wagram, North Carolina at this time, and things were going pretty good. I was just smoking grass every day, staying away from those guys I had got in trouble with. And then one day, one of them boys called me up, and they said they had a nice lick, nice opportunity for me to make some money. And I said, "Yeah, that sounds real good, man. Come up here and pick me up." And this is 4 months after I got out of prison. I ended up robbing another place, and long story short, like the ship sank. I ended up going back to jail, and I ended up going to prison this time. and it won't no 3 months. I ended up doing the 18 months plus another 9 months, and I went to 3 different correctional facilities, and this is where I went to my first AA meeting. And I remember because Ryan was in there. Y'all know Ryan if you're from this area, and Carlisle. And I remember going to those meetings, and I didn't know what in the hell they were talking about. I was just they were letting me make coffee, and I'd be in the back, and I'd have a glove, and I'd be pouring coffee in the glove and taking it back to the block and selling it for cigarettes, and I wouldn't be listening to nothing they were saying. But when I came into AA, when I was finally broken, I remember seeing those 2 guys, and I always remember that. But so I got out of prison in 2016. I said things were going to be different, and I got a job at Purdue Farms, and that is the worst place for any alcoholic or addict to get a job at. I'm going to tell you that right now. That place, I don't think I got a check for the whole 8 months I worked there because I owed it to the dope man or whoever it was, and I just couldn't take it anymore, and I ended up quitting that job. And during this period of time, like I'm gonna skip a little stuff and I'm gonna get sober, because all I did after this, I kept drinking, I kept doing drugs, and my life just continued to spiral in a downward motion. And I remember that guy that I was telling you about, that was my friend that had the family. I mean, he was my best friend. I would have went to war for him, he would have went to war for me, and drugs completely run that friendship. We had done some things one night that I'm not going to discuss in here, but we were on some drugs, and he ended up breaking my jaw, and I had to have facial reconstruction. I had to have my mouth wired shut for 3 months, and we hadn't been friends since. It ain't been good since then, and I had to have my mouth wired shut, and that was a golden ticket for me because they gave me everything I wanted. I didn't have to search for it anymore. I was good for about 4 months. The whole time my mouth was wired shut. And then there's that experience. And then I went through about a year phase where I was working at a yarn mill, and I was just kept using and kept drinking, and I ended up buying a car. Car got repossessed, and I think at this time I'm around 22, and 23 hits, and I'm working at this yarn mill. Me and my brother, we're living together now with my grandmother. We're completely depriving her of her sanity. We're stealing money from her. She's got to supply us every day with cigarettes because we don't have jobs, and we spend all our money on drinking and other things. And she's just a sweet lady, love her to death. And that's how things were for that year, and the car got repossessed, and me and my brother, we were always getting into it, and so I said I had had enough, and I got this job opportunity running 8 chicken houses in Mount Gilead, North Carolina, and I started working in these chicken houses, and I made pretty good money, $500 a week, no bills, and they gave us a double wide trailer, no power bill, everything paid for. You'd think you could get by on that. You'd think you would have groceries in the house, cable, internet. We didn't have any of that. It was completely horrible. I was out way in the country, just completely, absolutely isolated from the world. And me and my cousin were getting resentful at each other because, when there ain't what you need to go to work, or you don't have anything to drink, you're just completely tearing the other person down, and the things that they're not holding up their end of the deal with the work. And things wasn't going good at that farm. And so I remember, this is the key point in my sobriety. I remember one day I didn't have any, I was running out of the stuff I was using. I think I might have had 2 Bud Lights in the refrigerator, and like I said, I hate beer. But I remember chugging those beers, and I was driving this old farm truck, and my great-grandmother's grave, the lady who I used to go to church with, it was about 3 miles down the road. And I said, I'm going to drive down there. And this truck was about to run out of gas, and I drove down there, and for some reason, I don't know what came over me. I got down on my knees right there at her grave, and I prayed to her, I prayed to God, I prayed to whoever. I said, Grandma, please help me. I need to change my life. I know that something has to change. I know that I'm not living right. I'm not living the way you would want me to live, and I just want to get out of whatever I'm in. I don't even know what it is. And ever since that day that I'd done that, when I used, things were bad. it was never a successful use again or drinking event. Ever since that day, I remember I quit that job that day. I did run out of gas in that truck on the way back, and I remember leaving that job, and I was with my cousin, and we were going up to Virginia. He had a job with Duke Energy, and he was promising me a lot of money, and he could get me a job. And I had been up for a couple of days, and we had ended up coming back to Laurinburg to get some more party goods, and we were on our way back to Virginia, and somewhere during that trip, I lost my sanity, what I had left, and I ended up making him leave me in Charlottesville, Virginia, 6 hours from home. No money, no phone, no nothing, just completely, absolutely out of my mind. And this is my first experience with detox. I went to detox for a week, and I talked to Mark Christopher at Samaritan Colony. And I just remember I rode a Greyhound home, and I remember getting home and nothing changed. I never called Mark back. It took about 2 more months and another trip to jail. And I went to jail and got out, and it was Mother's Day of 2018, and I had been up all night, and my cousin and his girlfriend ended up getting in a fight, and it was about 5 o'clock in the morning. I called my grandmother and I said, "Come get me right now." I said, "I'm in Ellerby. Come get me right now. Things are bad up here." And she just wasn't having it. But she ended up coming and getting me, and I went home and I went to sleep, and I slept all day on Mother's Day. And I remember waking up, and it was nighttime, and I started doing what I do and getting on my mom's phone and seeing a message. She said, "This is the worst Mother's Day I've absolutely ever had." She said, "Both of my sons didn't come to see me. One of them was back there just drunk and asleep." And, that hurt me. I love my mom. I always have. But that's not even what pushed me to getting sober. I'm going to tell you right now, that night, the pain that I had on the inside, the pain that I felt, the isolation, I couldn't take it anymore. I would have rather literally died than live in what I was living in at that moment. And I don't know what came over me, but I said, "I'm going to the hospital and tell them I'm going to kill myself." And that's what I've done. I went to the hospital, told them I was going to kill myself. They cleared a room out for me, took everything out, had somebody watching me. And they shipped me up there to Moore County to the detox. And when I got up there, I said, "Hey, look, I'm really not planning on killing myself. I just need some help. Can I get my clothes back?" And they were like, yeah, we give you clothes back. And so